Learning Ablat Gemara, Motzoi Shabbos Kedesh Parshas Vayigash. We are now up to the 10th parak of Masechta Nedarim, and yeah, we're coming to that. So now, just briefly, for the last 9 parakim, we were learning all about the Nedarim. Now we're going to learn about another kind of a neder about regarding the annulling of the Nedarim, and that is. Till now, we learned the concept of Hatoras Nedarim. Hatoras Nedarim is you make a vow, you go to three adyotis or one mumche, and then Mater Neder. Mater Neder is retrospective. That means it's as if you never made the neder in the first place. We learned that you can either do it through charata, you regret that you ever made the neder in the first place, or it's through finding a Pesach, some kind of an opening. Had you realized the repercussions, you would never made it in the first place, provided it's not noiled, not something brand new. So we have an interesting concept. What happens if you made a neder that this meat is forbidden to me, or meat is generally forbidden to me, I'm not going to eat meat. And then you went ahead and ate it. And 2 witnesses warned you, if you eat it, you're breaching the Torah's rule of la yachal dvarei. And what happens is you'll get 39 lashes. On the way to the bezin to get your 39 lashes, you meet 3 people and you say to them, I want to undo my vow. I want to annul my vow. I want to be matzah neder. And they say to him, he has charata, or let's say he has a Pesach. So then what happens is that retrospectively, he never made the neder, which means he never committed a sin, and he goes right back home. There's no lashes. That's Hatoras Nedarim. Then we have a thing called Hafaras Nedarim. Hafaras Nedarim is when the father or a husband annuls the neder of the daughter of their wife, then those Nedarim are only are null and void going forward. But it's not retrospective. It's only going forward. So that's how most opinions differentiate between Hataras Nedarim and Hafaras Nedarim. Now, when it comes to a girl, there are generally 3 stages. By a boy, there's only 2 stages: a minor, an adult, cotton, or a golden. By a girl, there are three phases. There's a Tana, she's a minor. She's a Naira, which is like an adolescent, and there's a Bageris, which is an adult. But because a girl matures a year earlier than a boy, so therefore they broke it up into 3 stages. As far as the laws of the Torah, as soon as a girl is 12 years old, she has all the responsibilities of an adult. But in certain respects, she's still in the control of her father. Till she's 12 and a half, the father can still marry her off. If there's Kedushin money that goes to the father, that's till the age of 12 and a half. And the law is that the father can annul the vows of his daughter. If she's a Naira and she's at home, the father unilaterally can annul those Nedarim. When once a person is married, then he has that day to annul the Nedarim, b'yom shama, the day that he hears it, but only in the Nedarim that affects their relationship. As we'll see, Dvarim shebeino lebeino, things that affect the relationship between the two. And the logic behind it is later on, the Gemara will say, Rava says, because we assume if they're happily married and she decides to make a neder unilaterally on herself that affects the relationship, she'll say, provided my husband is happy. Otherwise, what's the point of making a neder and destroying the relationship? So that's the logic behind that. And so the Mishnah starts off. Naira Hameirasa. We're talking about a girl on the bottom of the page, Samavav Amad Beis on the bottom. A girl who is a Naira, she is between 12 and 12 and a half. Hameirasa, she's engaged. So now there's another variable here, another factor here. There's a husband to be or a fiance. So who has the right to annul the neder? It's the father and the husband who can annul the neder. And why do we say a naira? Because once she's over the age of a naira, once she's a bageris, once she's 12 and a half years old, the father is out of the picture. Whether she's single, whether she's married, makes no difference. The father no longer has any control over 12 and a half, over a girl over 12 and a half years old. Also, but a ketana, a young girl can also make vows. A young girl, and the Gemara says in Nazir, and we had other places, that a girl, it's called samuch, a mufla hasamuch liisha, mufla hasamuch liisha. A girl 1 year before she becomes an adult, 11 years old, and for a boy 1 year before he becomes an adult at the age of 12, they any nedarim that they make, anything they make has the full brunt of the law of a neder. If they make hegdish, they make truma, it is, according to most opinions, mahatorah, it's recognized as being hegdish. And we have a fascinating discussion. So what happens if, let's say, a girl at the age of 11 and a half makes a neder that she will not eat meat, and as long as she's understanding what she's saying, so it has the din of a neder from the Torah, as the Rosh says right here, a neder from the Torah. So what happens if she eats the meat? Right? She breached her promise, but she's only 11 and a half years old. Is she going to receive the 39 lashes? How do we understand the concept that a minor, the Torah recognizes this particular activity of a minor as if it's an adult? There's two ways of understanding it. Either, as far as this mitzvah is concerned, she's a total adult, which means that if she breaches her promise, she will get the full brunt of the law and she'll be punished with lashes and all that. Or do we say she's still a minor? The Torah narrowly said that if she consecrates something or if she makes a neder, that thing it becomes forbidden to her mahatorah. But if she breaches that neder, then she's still a minor. She will only be treated as a minor, which means there's no punishment. So there's a big discussion on that point. Anyway, the Mishnah continues. So they jointly annul her neder. Then the Mishnah spells it out. If the husband, if the father, let's say, annuls a neder, not the husband, or the husband annuls it, not the father, ain't a mufer. It's not annulled. Now, this is obvious. The Gemara is going to ask. He already told us that you need them jointly to go ahead and cancel the neder. What do you have to spell it out for? The father without the husband without the father. I mean, it's obvious. And then the Mishnah continues further. A third clause. The aim sort of. I don't have to tell you. There's one thing is to cancel a neder. If one of them, the husband or the father, said, "I confirm the neder," the Torah says that the husband has three options, or the father has three options. When he hears the neder that particular day, he has three options. Either he's made for it, he knows it. Either he does nothing, or he's mekayim it. He confirms it that it's a good idea, this neder. And he has only that day. Beyond that day, it's over. We're saying over here is that the father and the husband together, if one of them is mekayim the neder, then the other one can't do anything about it. It's it. The neder is confirmed. And it's obvious. If it's so obvious, why does the Mishnah have to spell it out as well? As we'll see. Says the Gemara. Question number one is what we just asked before. You already told us that the jointly canceled the nedarim. Why does the Mishnah have to spell out the father without the husband? The husband without the father is meaningless. So the Gemara, I'll tell you why. And is a conjunctive word, but also and can mean or. So when we read the Mishnah, it's hard. You can interpret it two ways: either the husband and the father, or you can interpret the husband or the father. So the Gemara for the Mishnah spells it out. I would have thought, or the husband or the father. That's what that Kamash Shalom come tell you. No, you need them both doing in concert. The ain son of Lem, I don't have to tell you, Shekiyim Echmen. If one of them confirmed, that's it. So the Gemara, no, if you don't have to tell me, so why did you tell me? Mishnah, why didn't you bother telling me? If one of them cancels the neder and the other one doesn't, it's not a good cancellation. If one of them went ahead and confirmed it, what did it tell me for? Even if they didn't confirm it, if they don't annul it, nothing happens. So surely if he confirmed it, why do you need to tell me that? Says Gemara, you know what we need it for? A following situation. Going, for example, the Hofer Echad Mehem V'Kiyad Echad. What happened? Let's say the father annulled the neder, and the husband confirmed it. Okay, and then the Chazar Hamekayim V'Nishal HaKamasa, and then the husband went to three rabbanim and three people and said, "Do me a favor. When I confirmed it's like I made the neder as well because I joined in with her. I want to annul what I did. I want to be shoyl. I want to be mater neder. I want you to be mater my hakama. I want you to undo my confirmation." And what happens when you undo the confirmation? It's retrospective. So Ma'atem would have thought, well, my du'uke ha'akre. What I established, I removed. So it's as if I was never confirmed. So maybe now the husband can go, as long as within the time period, the time frame, the husband can go ahead and cancel the neder. So now you have two, the father and the husband. Kamash Malon, the mafidin shnei b'vazachas. We need both of them to, when each one cancels the neder, the other one is still a possibility to cancel. When the husband canceled the neder, then the husband confirmed it, then therefore, what you do later doesn't help anymore. It's too late, it doesn't work. There's an argument in Rishonim. So what happens if the father then repeats the annulment again? Okay, the first annulment is no good. What happens? The husband goes along and the father, and they do it again on that same day. Does it work now? Big argument in the Rishonim. The Rashba asked an interesting question. As we explained before, that when you're mater neder, it's retrospective, as if it never happened. So what's going on here? If, let's say, the husband confirmed it, and then he was mater neder, it's as if he never confirmed it. So what's the problem? Why should it be a problem? So the Ran explains. The Ran explains as follows. He says that when the husband, or let's say the father, when the father canceled half the neder, nothing really happened, right? It's meaningless because you need both of them. So if nothing really happened, and then the husband came along and confirmed the neder, so what happens to the father's cancellation of the neder? It disappears. So even though the husband then, retroactively removed that hakama, but how are you going to resurrect the father's cancellation? Once he canceled it, he canceled it. And because the father canceled it, but because it went nowhere, because the husband went ahead and confirmed it, that cancellation disappeared. It's not around anymore. So even though the husband later removes his confirmation, but how do you resurrect the cancellation of the father? You can't. And the only question is, can he come later and cancel again together with the husband? So that's the argument. And there's a big argument as well amongst the Rishonim when we say that the father and the husband cancel, and the day that they heard. What happens if the husband heard it 5 days later? Can they still work in tandem, or do we say they both have to hear it on the same day? Or it's relative to each person. Whenever they heard it, that day, that's the window, they have a chance to cancel, and could we combine the two or not? Okay, a big argument there as well. Okay, before we learn the next piece of Gemara, so we know very simply that a father unilaterally can cancel his daughter's Nedarim, and as the pasuk says, that I'll read you this 3 psukim that we need to know here, and so there are 3 psukim. One pasuk says that if a woman makes a neder and the father heard about it, either he confirms it or he cancels it, and he has that day to do that. Okay, then that's the first section. So obviously that's talking about a single girl. Then the pasuk says, pasuk zayin, the im. I'm just reading you the psukim by heart, and then we go back to the Gemara. It says the im hayoysia ish, if she's engaged, if she is related to a person, she's in a relationship with a person. It's vague. We're not sure. We're talking about an engagement or an actual marriage. And underela, she has vows with her already from before, and the husband heard it on that day. Either he's quiet and he confirms it, or he cancels it. Then pasuk yud aleph, so that's pasuk zayin. We're not sure, is that pasuk talking about she's engaged, or we're talking about that she's married? And we're not sure, are we talking about the husband alone or the husband combined with the father? We'll come back to that. Then pasuk yud aleph says, the im base isha nadara, if she made the nadarim while she lived in her husband's house, and so on, the husband heard, and he has that day to either confirm or to cancel. Okay, that's what it says. Now, the question is that middle pasuk. What are we talking about? So the last pasuk is talking about marriage. The very beginning talks about she's a girl, single. The middle one, what are we talking about there? And ve'im is a conjunction, which sounds like that that whatever we're talking about the father, and also we're carrying over the father, introducing now the husband, as if they both have to work together. So the Gemara is going to discuss that very point. How do you know that the father and the husband work together? Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Amar Rabba says, Rabba, Amakra, it says in pasuk, the im hayoy, that middle pasuk. If she has a relationship with a person, she has vows with her. Mikan, from here we learn out, this girl who's engaged, that both jointly do it. We know the husband does it because the pasuk says clearly the husband does it, and we know that the father, because it says ve'im, and prior to that pasuk we were talking about the father annulling his daughter's vows, and then it says and if she is engaged to the man, so we're carrying over the father. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. For argument's sake, why don't we argue as follows? The father, as long as she's a naira, she's under 12 and a half, the father unilaterally cancels her nadar. What about the pasuk of hayas? Even if she's engaged to somebody, the father can do it alone. The pasuk being hayas here, that's talking about if she got married. Why don't we just say that pasuk is talking about she got married? Says the Gemara. I'll tell you why we're not talking about marriage, because then we have 2 psukim saying the same thing. Pasuk Zayin, Bim Hayasili should tell me talking about she's married to a husband, that's why he can annul it. And then the Pasuk at Aleph says, and if the base in the house of her husband, she makes a Nedarim, so why do you need two psukim to talk about the same thing if she's married? It says, if she made a neder while she lived with her husband, so therefore you don't need to psukim talk about marriage. So obviously the first pasuk is talking about that she is engaged, and we're talking about the father and the husband together. Says the Gemara, why not? Why can't we argue for argument's sake? They're both talking about she's married. You can ask me a question. Why do we need two psukim telling us that the husband while they're married could cancel it? I'll tell you why. The first pasuk is coming to teach you pasuk Zayin, the general rule: a husband, fiance can cancel. A married husband can cancel the nedarim of his wife. In other words, as long as they're not married, even though they're engaged, the father is is the one who can cancel the nedarim. Once you get married, it's the husband. That's pasuk Zayin. Pasuk Yud Aleph comes to teach you we are limiting the powers of the husband, or the ability of the husband, that any nedarim that she placed before she got married to this man, he has no right over them. It's only those things that took place after they got married. So Pasuk Yud Aleph is coming to teach you a certain particular law about marriage. Pasuk Zayin introduces the general idea, and Yud Aleph is giving you a specific law. Says the Gemara, maybe that's what the Pasuk Yud Aleph was teaching, that the husband cannot cancel the nedarim that she took prior to the marriage. So the Gemara, that doesn't make sense, because you're right. Once Pasuk Yud Aleph tells us that the husband can cancel the nedarim of his wife, only those that took place during the marriage, automatically we know that the husband can cancel the wife's nedarim. Why in the world do we need Pasuk Zayin? So it must be that Pasuk Zayin is talking about engaged. But you can still ask a question. Maybe Pasuk Zayin, all Pasuk Zayin says is the husband can cancel the nedarim of his fiance. But how? Why don't we say that only the husband can do it? The father is no longer involved. The pasuk doesn't mention the father because in logic it doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense? One, because there's no question when these two people are in a relationship. A husband and wife is a far stronger relationship. A husband and wife have a far stronger relationship than I guess a bride and a groom while they're engaged. So let's think for a second. Once they're married, the husband can only annul those vows that she took upon herself after they got married. But you're telling me while he's a chassan, he can annul all the vows that she made before they were in a relationship? How can it be that he has more powers, or let's call it powers, euphemistically, how can it be that he has more abilities while they're engaged than after they got married? It doesn't make sense. Must be that the chassan can only do it jointly with the father, because the father can annul all the vows while she was a single girl, before she was in a relationship with the chassan. So it must be that the chassan tags along with the father, and together they cancel. That's the first answer. Answer number two. Answer number two. How do we know that the pasuk is talking about pasuk Zayin is talking about they were engaged? Forget the whole pilpul we just said. Just the words in the pasuk. It says Haya Yisiyah, and the word Haya means that they have it says in the pasuk that engagement means the word Havaya. It says V'yatsa v'haisa li'ish acher, when a man divorces a wife and she left him, v'haisa li'ish acher, she married another man, she got engaged to another man, she can no longer go back to the first husband. So the haisa, and we learn out all the laws of kedushin and gittin we compare to each other from the yatsa v'haisa. So the word v'haisa means engaged. So the pasuk says that v'hayasiyah, because it says the pasuk hayasiyah means engaged. Just a simple reading of the pasuk. So the pasuk is about engaged, and it's the husband with the father together while they're engaged that annul the neder. Says the Gemara, but have a kedushin, the havaya kedushin mashma. The word haya seems like they're talking about they were engaged. Says the Gemara, okay. Let me ask you this for argument's sake. Maybe the father unilaterally can no longer annul his daughter's nedarim because there's a chassan involved. But maybe the chassan can unilaterally annul the nedarim without the help of the father, because the pasuk says if hayasiyah and the husband heard and he cancels, so it means the husband can do it on his own. So you want to aim, why'd you say of l'chude mefer? Say that the father, which sorry, the other way around. since the father, sorry, I jumped ahead. The Gemara's question is very simple. The father till now unilaterally can annul Nedarim as long as she's under 12 and a half. So maybe that continues. Even though she's engaged, the father can do it unilaterally. The chassan can do it only jointly with the father. Ema, let us say, of l'chude mefer, the father alone can annul, but but the chassan needs the help of the father. And says the Gemara, it can't be. Because if the father can annul the Nedarim of his daughter who is engaged to another man on his own, why do we need a pasuk to tell you that the father can also annul the vows of his daughter when she's single? If he can annul it when she's engaged, surely he can annul it when she's single. Why does it have to say an extra pasuk? You can't so tell me that pasuk where it says, "Ba'asra isa bebeisa via b'nerev." She took upon herself a vow while she lived in her father's house. Yani avia yani, so the father is the one who can cancel it. Of course he can. He can even cancel unilaterally if his daughter is engaged to another man. So surely he can cancel it when she's on her own. Why is it you need a pasuk? If she's engaged to a man, yet the father can unilaterally go ahead and cancel her Nedarim of l'chude, the father on his own. If there's no others, they have to tell me. Says the Gemara, Ema, let us say the other way around. You're right, the other way around. Oh, the father can no longer unilaterally cancel Nedarim. So you have one pasuk regarding a single girl, the father could do it on his own. If she's engaged, the father needs the help of the chassan. Okay, but maybe the chassan could do it on his own. Ema of liboy aris, the father needs the effort of the chassan. But the chassan can do it on his own. I can ask the obvious question. So who needs the father then? If the father cannot cancel the daughters Nedarim unless the chassan is involved. If the chassan does it, he can do it on his own. So what role does the father play? He can play the role of a spoiler. How can he play the role of a spoiler? If he confirms the neder of his daughter. If he cancels it, we don't need his help. But if he confirms the neder of his daughter, that's a spoiler, and the chassan can no longer cancel it. Maybe that's what the Torah is saying here. The chitema of the Kosachman Alamali, you want to know why he mentions the father? We needed the hekim. That if the father confirmed the neder of the daughter, then that's it, fafal, and you can no longer cancel it. But otherwise, it's the chassan alone without the father. How do we know that the Mishnah says they both jointly do it together? Neither one is stronger than the other one. Says the Gemara, because I'll tell you why. If you tell me the chassan could do it on his own, then why does the Torah have to tell you that if they get married, the chassan can cancel his wife's nedarim? If he can cancel his wife's nedarim when they're just engaged, of course he can cancel when they're married. Why do we need pasuk yud aleph? Im kain, if so, base isha nedarim my kasev. So why in the world does the Torah say base isha nedarim? That's what once she's married and she makes a net that the husband cancel it. Kal v'chaymer, isn't it kal v'chaymer? If in the place where the father exists, the chassan can cancel on his own without the assistance of the father. So now there's no father in the picture anymore. They're married. You got to tell me the chassan is on. It's redundant. So obviously, pasuk zayin is talking about they're engaged and they do it jointly, and pasuk yud is talking about they're married. Says the Gemara, no. Ema, why do we say im beis isha nadar leimer she'ein habal mefer b'koydmin? So the Gemara says no. I'll tell you, pasuk zayin is talking about they're engaged, but the chassan can do it on his own. And pasuk yud aleph is not coming to tell you that the chassan can annul his wife. Of course he can. If he could have done it when they're engaged, surely he can do it when they're married. Pasuk yud aleph is coming to tell you that once they're married, he can only annul the nedarim that she took upon herself after they got married, not prior. Says the Gemara, that doesn't make sense. Umine, if the husband, once he's married, is limited that he can only annul the nedarim she made after they got married, you're going to tell me, but when they're engaged, he can annul the nedarim on his own that she took before they got engaged. That doesn't make sense. So obviously, while they're engaged, the husband can only annul the nedarim together with the father, because since the father had a right to annul it before they had a relationship, the daughter and the chassan. So therefore, the chassan tags along with the latches onto the father, and together they do it. So the Gemara says, "Uminei," and from there you learn out, "Orus mefer b'koydmin," that elalam mishum shutfus. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. While they're married, he cannot annul the nedarim that took place before the marriage, but Orus could. When they're engaged, he could. Doesn't make sense. It must be mishum shutfus, they do it jointly together. So that's the second approach for the word hoya. Comes the Gemara with a third approach. Dvei Rabbi Shmuel Tana Yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel learns that the very conclusion of all the laws in the Nedarim, the Torah sums it up, and it says, these are the laws that Hashem told Moshe, bein ish leishtoi, between a man and his wife, bein of lebit, and the father and his daughter. So Rabbi Shmuel is going to say that the wife and the daughter are the same person. Every wife is somebody's daughter. We're talking about the same person here, that this person who happens to have a father and a husband, this woman who has a father and a husband, together they're going to annul the Nedarim. You learn out. They both jointly annul her Nedarim. Says the Gemara, if he learns it from this pasuk, what is Rabbi Shmuel going to do with the pasuk Hoya Siel Ish, which literally means that he got engaged? What do you need a pasuk about engagement? We already know from this pasuk how to treat this girl, how to deal with this situation when she's engaged. That the father and the husband jointly annul her Nedarim. Says the Gemara, well, Rabbi Shmuel, Im Hoya Siel Ish, my overlay. What do you do with that pasuk? Says the Gemara, you know what he does with it? Rava has another din. What happens if this girl got engaged? It's all a naira, under 12 and a half. This girl got engaged, and then she got divorced. And then what happens that period after divorce? She did not get married, only engaged. Says Rava that if she goes right back to her father, and the father now is the one has a sole right to annul and Nedarim until she's 12 and a half. How do I know that? Because it says Hoya Siye. If she was engaged twice, Hoya, she was engaged once, then it fell apart, went back to the father, and then Siya, she got engaged a second time, and now she's still engaged, the father and the husband jointly. That's what Rava says. And that's what Rabbi Shmuel does with that pasuk. And Rava personally learns two dinim from that pasuk. He learns that they jointly annul the Nedarim, and that if she's engaged and got divorced, it goes back to her father. Says Gemara, Rava, what does he do with the law of Rabbi Shmuel? What does he do with this pasuk? What does he do with that? He doesn't. Rava says we learn how to engage, that the father and the husband jointly do it, and no, that we learn from how you see it. What does he do with the pasuk? Says the Gemara. The boiler, you know what he needs it for? To tell you, you know what kind of Nedarim he can annul? Only Nedarim that affect their relationship between him and her. A ned that she takes upon herself that doesn't affect the relationship, he has no say whatsoever. However, the Torah did say if she takes on a neder that is going to harm herself, and therefore naturally that also affects the relationship, he can annul that. Big argument in the Rambam, the Ramban. What about the father? The father, he knows the Nedarim of his daughter. Is he also limited to those Nedarim beinoi lebeino? In other words, the only Nedarim that he can affect, that he can cancel on Nedarim which she either harms herself or between him and her, or all the Nedarim. The Rambam says he can cancel any neder he wants. The father can cancel all the Nedarim for 12 and a half. The Ramban says only like the husband, because the pasuk says ishli ishtoi ishabita. The only problem with that, Achronim try to work out, and they haven't really resolved it so well. What kind of neder can a girl make that actually affects their relationship? What kind of neder are we talking about? We're not talking about harming herself. She's not harming herself. So what other nedarim does a girl make that she owes her father something that affects their relationship? Can't make a neder that she won't listen to father. That's against the Torah. We're talking about nedarim which are not against the Torah. So what kind of relationship is there between a father and a daughter that we say, oh, this neder will affect that relationship? It's not an avera. It's not harming herself, but it affects the relationship. What exactly is it? Not clear. One of the things when we say between a husband and wife is that she makes a neder, she won't put on any makeup. And that might affect their relationship because she doesn't want to look so pretty. Can you say the same thing about a daughter and a father? He said, I want you to look appealing for shidduchim. And then she says, no, but that's not really a direct relationship between a daughter and a father. So, questionable. Now the Gemara asks a very interesting question, and we'll just learn this question. You know, when we talk about a partnership, we mentioned a few weeks ago, when we talk about a partnership, two partners who own a business together, or they own, easier to understand, a property, they own a property together. There's two ways of understanding. Does each person own 50% of 100%, or does each person own 100% of 50%? In other words, do we say that each person only owns half the property? We just don't know which half. Or do we say, no, each person owns 50% of the entire property? And we're going to ask, and the Chesed Choshen, everyone talks about that. And actually, the Gemara has this very question right there. We say the husband and the father together annul the daughters and the wives and the fiancés, Nedarim. How do we understand it? Is it that one of them does 50% and the other one does 50%? Or the first person who does it has 50 of 100%, which means he reduced the entire neder and made it weaker, and the next person comes and cancels completely. Now, what's a tangible difference between the two approaches? Like this. What happens? She made a neder, she will not eat 2 olives. That's her bir mitzvah, 2 olives. And she said, I won't eat these 2 olives. And what do you call it? And the husband came along and says, I canceled that neder. The father didn't. She decided to eat the olives. The witness says, don't eat them because he made a promise. If she ate both olives, if you learn that 50% is canceled and 50% is still in existence, so one of the olives now are permitted, because 50% of the neder, there were 2 olives there. She said 2 olives I'm not going to eat. One of the olives is permitted. The other olive is forbidden. We just don't know which one. But if she ate both olives, then definitely she ate the olives forbidden. She will get 39 lashes. However, if we learn the other way, that the husband canceled, he weakened the entire neder, he brought it down a notch, there's no longer any lashes involved, and she gets no lashes at all. So that's Gemara saying it. Inside the Gemara, the boy will have a question. Baal, the husband, made his guys, as he chop up, each one does 50%, so he chopped it in half, or maklish kolish, or he weakens the entire neder. And the Gemara asks, what's the difference? Going to Nadra, let's say she made a neder, she made a neder with 2 olives. The Shama Oris, the husband heard it, the Hefila, and he canceled it, and then she went ahead and ate it. If we say Megas guys, if we say that the husband 50% he removed, so 1 olive is permitted, but the other olive still remains usher. Then Lekayo, she will get her 39 lashes. However, if we say Maklish Kolish, if we say that the husband came and he weakens the entire neder, he brought it down a notch, then he's Suda Balmu. It's only a prohibition, and it's not, there's no Malkus here. The Gemara, we're not going to go further, but the Gemara tomorrow brings 5 different cases, and it's quite complicated, the Gemara. There's actually 2 ways of learning tomorrow's Gemara. One is you just learn the Gemara superficially, and it's pretty easy, straightforward then. The other way is there are 5 different cases about it, what the father did, what the husband did, and each case has to add something that the previous case didn't, you wouldn't have known the previous case. If you do that, it's quite complex. But the Gemara conclusion is that this very question we have is an argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, as you'll see tomorrow in the Gemara. Okay, we're going to have a good vach, and we can say Happy New Year, because as the Rebbe pointed out, that it says in Tehillim, Hashem Yispar B'Ksoiv Amim, Hashem counts in the dates of the nations, so we can wish each other Happy New Year as well.